Alright, what is up guys, it is Storm back here with another video, and in this one I am bringing you Mightless, a My Hero Academia story part 28 by the Mysterious Banana. Now if you want to check this story out for yourself, the link to it will be down in the description below. But before the video begins, if you like the content you're seeing, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. I mean, they're all free, so why not? If you want some dope channel merch, links that'll be down in the description below, and if you want to see more of me, be sure to go check out my other channels, and go follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, which will all be linked down below. But without further ado, why don't we just dive right on in. Our car pulled over at the very same broken down warehouse it had been so many times. The young leader got off the vehicle, stepping into the building with a nervous look on his face. Inside the haunting structure, the flickering lights were like pairs of judgmental eyes staring in disappointment at him. Finally reaching his destination, Izuku sat down in the chair facing his sensei. Despite not having much of a face, Izuku could sense the anger coming from his teacher. Not an extreme amount of anger, but more like the amount you receive from a disappointed father. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why, either. Izuku had not only failed to capture Shigaraki, but had also acted selfishly, and in doing so, let the man escape, caused one of their strongest and newest members to turn on them, and cost them 3 of their nomus. Once Izuku was done drinking away all of his problems, he was immediately called by Kurogiri, who claimed his sensei wanted to see him, which brings us to the current situation. I'm not going to explain to you what you did wrong, as I know you should be smart enough to figure that out yourself, but I'm still disappointed to do it. All for one started to scold. Izuku, hearing this, lowered his head in shame. I had lots of hope in you, poured as much of my heart into you as I did with my previous student, hoping you two wouldn't turn out the same way. This was the last thing I was expecting from someone like you, Izuku, he continued. Hearing this, Izuku wanted to lash out deep down. Comparing him to Shigaraki struck a pretty sensitive spot in his heart, but he knew he couldn't do that, because he trusted his sensei. He knew that what his sensei was speaking was true, he just had a hard time accepting it. I'm sorry, sensei, Izuku replied. I overheard that All Might was giving Todoroki his quirk, and that he was sorry for not helping someone who needed him. That revelation put me on edge. I had it on the back of my head, constantly fueling my rage. I didn't think straight. I made so many dumb decisions. It's alright, my child, All for One responded, as Izuku stopped talking to listen. You may have acted foolishly, like Shigaraki does, but unlike him, you're still young, you're still green, unsure about your own emotions, and in times, you'll have stuff from the past come back to haunt you, but have no real way of controlling yourself. All of this, the things you went through, it's all a part of you slowly growing up. But if you can confront your past trauma, the same trauma who has been throwing you off all this time, then I can guarantee you, you will become a perfect successor for my quirk. Izuku smiled at his sensei's comforting words. Really? You really think that? Asked the young student. Of course I do, but beware. It isn't easy overcoming such a hurdle. In fact, Shigaraki was once in this very same situation, explained the villain. He was? Oh yes. You see, Shigaraki wasn't always the man-child you know him as. Back when he was your age, he was just as determined and smart as you. He had amazing potential and was willing to do anything to get what he wanted. Sadly, he failed to overcome his hatred of All Might, and in doing so, slowly became impatient that his plans and tactics weren't enough to kill him. In the end, he ditched all of the brilliance he had because of his hate for All Might, and the pro-heroes blinded him, All for One explained. Izuku thought for a moment. So this whole time, Shigaraki was a fallen leader, stuck in the past due to his grudges, and unable to move on until he was done fighting the past, he speculated. And now you are going down this same path. Will you be able to vanquish your inner demons though? Or will you end up the same foolish puppet, completely dependent on the League to pull his weight? All for One asked. Suddenly, the lost fire of determination reignited as Izuku stood up valiantly. I'm going to overcome my past. My League needs to have a good leader to rely on, so I can't let them down, Izuku exclaimed. Seeing this, All for One smiled. One more thing, Izuku, he said, extending his hand. Your practical exams are coming up, and from the school files you leaked, you'll have to fight against the teachers. Hearing this, Izuku froze, knowing that he'll have to face off against All Might. As such, as well as being punishment for your failure, I'll be taking away your quirk for this occasion, explained the sensei. Upon hearing this, Izuku immediately started to protest. But Sensei, you can't do this to me. I can't do anything without my quirk. I can't go back to being weak. I can't. Calm yourself, my child. All for One cut off. You are so much stronger than you think. Back then when I gave you your quirk, it was never to give you a fighting chance to enter Yuuei. Rather, I needed to give you something that could boost your confidence. My confidence? Izuku asked. You keep on victimizing yourself for not having a quirk, which I can understand. But I couldn't let your lack of self-belief hold you back. Sometimes, even the best geniuses will think themselves as idiots for not being good at the things they're not at. So, to make sure you can use your brain to the fullest without your thoughts of being quirkless getting in your way, I give you a quirk to compensate for it. Though now I feel like I may have spoiled you a bit. A contributing factor to your outburst, explained All for One. But what about the sports festival, or my fight with Kachan, or me getting into Yuuei? My quirk played a huge role in those parts, pleaded the young boy. And what about your villain career's beginning, where you earned enough reputation to get noticed by the League? What about your first mission, where you managed to retrieve a quirk enhancer drug that's been playing a huge role in our League ever since? What about the USJ incident, where you struck a huge blow to the reputations of heroes, and only failed due to a betrayal not even I could predict? What about the HQ raid you masterminded, or Endeavor, whose pride you've broken? Your biggest accomplishments were all thanks to your brilliant mind. Your quirk played no part in any of those except for one thing. To make sure you don't think about your weakness, he replied. That revelation left Izuku bewildered. He never thought of it before, but his quirks never really did too much for him. He now knew that this whole time, he was blinded by his past self, constantly yelling at himself that he was nothing without quirks, and he never realized how powerful he really was, even without quirks. It was all clear to him. He needed to break the chains of the past holding him back. That was his next big step. No longer scared, he walked up to his sensei, and with a rough, calloused palm placed on his head, he felt his quirk leave his body, reverting him back to his old self. But he no longer felt helpless. Instead, he felt like he had returned to his true self. There was no more weak, quirkless little Deku. No more wimpy, stuttering Izuku. There was only Mightless. Days went by after the break, and Class A was finally back in action. Their first after-break course, rescue training. To summarize, teams of 5 must reach the center of Testing Field Gamma, another multi-million-dollar test ground that made Izuku question Japan's economic choices, to reach a distress signal that All Might sent off to quote-unquote save him. Izuku was paired with Ida, Sero, Mina, and Ojiro, all very mobility-focused students, especially the first two. Having lost the ability to manipulate his breath was a major step back for the kid, and he was shaking in fear under his uniform, much like he used to long ago. Even Katsuki took notice as he started to laugh at him. Focus, Izuku, focus. Remember what Sensei said. My true talent is not my quirk, it's not the quirk, thought Izuku, as he made his way to the starting line. Who am I kidding? How the hell am I gonna make it in such a short amount of time? As the starting gun was fired, the students rocketed off, leaving Izuku behind. As the young teen struggled to keep up, thoughts kept rushing back to his head. I knew it. I'm nothing without my quirk. I can't do this. I can't. Suddenly his foot slipped, as he was plummeting down the building he was on. Upon falling down, all he could feel were regrets. This was all my fault. If only I hadn't betrayed Stain, I would, he thought before a memory suddenly hit him. Wait a minute. Stain jumps off buildings all the time and lands safely, but his quirk isn't what allows him to do so. So he must have used technique. Slowly, trying to piece together how Stain did it. He remembered seeing him in action time and time again. Latch on the wall, leap to the next, bend the knees, square the shoulders, don't look down. Slowly, his heart pumped with excitement. He was moving forward, galloping, leaping, not with quirks, but with what he was best at, analyzing. That was his talent all along, one that he had ditched after obtaining a quirk. Picking up where he left off, he dug into the vaults of his memory to remember every move he had analyzed, trained in the past, observed. His body was in full autopilot while he reached deep into his mind to move to the next. Ida, who was halfway there, suddenly saw a figure run by him, whose movements made him shudder in fear for a brief moment. Stain? He said to himself. No, it's Midoriya, but why do his movements seem so similar? Eventually the course ended, with Izuku coming in third, but he didn't care. He knew that now he no longer needed his quirk to exact his revenge. Towards the end of the day, however, Izuku made an announcement. With summer coming up, it would be quite irrational to give you all a month off. Hence, you'll be taking a summer training camp in the woods, explained the teacher. This was always the best part of the day to the kid, seeing what special event was coming up to find a way to ruin them. And now with the entire class isolated in the woods, he could just imagine the headlines prior to the camp. Massacre at Yuuei training camp. Heroes fail to protect students. He couldn't wait for another big heist. It had been quite a while since he could have fun messing with the heroes, and he knew the League was thinking the same thing. But first, he needed to overcome one last hurdle, his blinding hatred for All Might. Flash forward to June. Crap, I totally got wrapped up on the internship and sports festival that I forgot to study, yelled a frustrated Kaminari. It was a week before the finals, both written and practical of course. The written portion didn't faze Izuku one bit. After realizing his true talent, his class ranking skyrocketed past that of Katsuki, and Ida's nearly even catching up to Momo's. Sadly, two 100s could only pull Izuku's notes up so much as his average couldn't possibly compare to Momo's perfect 100 record. Although in terms of practical, she seemed quite stressed out. He heard that apparently Momo had lost all confidence ever since her loss to Tokoyami during the sports festival. Of course, the boy couldn't care less. He doesn't really mind any of his classmates, in fact. They're all pawns to him. Though he can name out a few exceptions, notably Ochako, Ida, Todoroki, and to his surprise, Katsuki. As time went on, he really started to understand less and less about his former bully. The once loudmouth, nitroglycerin-filled balloon seemed a lot more tame, a lot less triggered, and to some extent, even more mellow. But only towards other students. He was still a full-time asshole to him. He was often seen chatting with Kirishima, who seemed to be the only student in the whole school to intentionally approach him, without being told to do so on a 1,000 yen dare. Yo, Deku, speak of the devil. Hey, are you deaf or something? I've been calling you for 5 minutes, yelled the spiky-haired teen to his green-haired punching bag. Letting out an annoyed groan, Izuku turned to him. Yeah, what is it, Kachan? Izuku asked, expecting another 10 minutes of death threats. You've been quite dodgy recently, trying to avoid me or something? Maybe I'm scaring you too much, you pussy. The bag of explosives started. Just because I'm not in your line of sight 24/7 doesn't mean I don't exist, Kachan. Do you really think I only exist to be your stepping stone? Izuku asked back in a sort of pissed off, passive-aggressive tone he's been using to talk to the guy. Yeah, like I only need one stepping stone. You're all just hurdles, you hear me? And I don't appreciate the fact that you're all gonna overlook me. It's been so damn annoying to have everyone just overlook the top dog of this class. Well, I hope you all prepare, because I'm gonna blow up this fucking practical exam with an explosion so big, you'll all be worshipping me by the end of this, he yelled. Even you, Todoroki. Slamming the door behind him, he stomped down the hall. The rest of the class was silenced by the outburst. I haven't seen Bakugo so serious in a while, commented Kirishima. Uneasiness or perhaps sheer hatred, wondered Tokoyami. A week flew by, and before anyone knew it, it was the day of the practical exam. Izuku had learned about the revision, making the students fight the teachers, wondering whether his ideas influenced this change or not. What he wasn't expecting was who he was paired up against. Bakugo. And their opponents? Of course All Might, cause why not? While driving the duo to the testing grounds, Izuku stared at the hero from head to toe, trying to hold back the urge to just pull out a knife and stab him in the lungs. Looking at how confident he was, ignorant of what he had created made him so sick. He had to excuse himself to go vomit prior to embarking on the bus. Katsuki, on the other hand, sensed that his childhood friend was beaming with so much anger. It was like looking at himself in the mirror. Deku, what's going on with you? Katsuki asked himself. As the two got off, All Might explained the rules of the two. They had to either escape the compound or handcuff the villain. Izuku during this explanation was biting his tongue on the inside, preventing himself from lashing out like he did with Katsuki during their combat training way back when. As the testing started, Izuku rushed into the compound, with Katsuki quickly following. Hey, slow the fuck down, you shitty nerd, yelled Katsuki, a phrase he never thought he would say. He was just as determined at beating All Might, but seeing someone so wimpy and weak that would usually freak out at the mere sight of the hero emit such an aura of hatred toward his idol. He began wondering what happened to Izuku during all this time. Izuku didn't answer. He was afraid that merely opening his mouth would have his anger pour out. Instead, he just kept on running. "Deku, for fuck's sake, can you at least tell me what the fuck your plan here is?" asked Katsuki. No answer. Shut the fuck up, for fuck's sake, and let me massacre this son of a bitch in peace, would you? Izuku snapped at Katsuki. The son yelling made him stop in his tracks. Never heard him talk in such a tone. The fact that he would even refer to All Might as a son of a bitch was unfathomable. Suddenly, a strong shockwave was felt, as the buildings nearby were blown away. All Might, despite handicapped, was still packing quite a punch as he emerged from the rising dusts. "Massacre me?" asked All Might with a naive tone. "Good luck with that." Upon seeing this, Katsuki entered a fighting stance, while Izuku looked into his eyes. Those same naive pair of eyes that looked down upon him when he crushed his dreams that faithful day. The same pair of eyes that looked down on him, hypocritically, since he was quirkless too. "Think of this as a test," All Might explained. "I'm the villain, heroes, so give me your best shot." The villain then came charging at the two like a mad bull. Upon seeing this, Katsuki turned to his partner. "Listen, I got this covered, so don't get in my way," Katsuki told his partner. "Shut the fuck up, Katsuki, he's mine," Izuku yelled out, losing both his cool and habit of calling Katsuki by his given name. Seeing the student charging at him, All Might sent another punch at him, but as the smoke cleared once more, he was met in the face with a stop sign. "Don't think I was just sitting around studying All Might," Izuku yelled, continually striking his weak points. "I've been training day and night for one goal: to beat you. This kid, he keeps going for my battle wound. Does he know about it, or is this just a coincidence?" All Might thought. Either way, it won't be enough. He grabbed Izuku by the leg, slamming him onto the ground. "A little weak barrage like that hurts, but only a little," All Might commented, before getting hit by an explosion from behind. "Don't turn your back on me," Katsuki yelled at him, as he launched another explosion. All Might punched right through it, sending a fist flying at Katsuki, but the latter rocketed himself into the air, flipping behind him, trying to land a hit, but crashed into a charging Izuku. As the duo fought, the #1 pro hero, Recovery Girl, watched from her tent. Both have different reasons for wanting to beat All Might. One seems to be a very gifted student that has made it clear that he just wants to have everyone acknowledge his superiority, so his desire to beat All Might is justified, thought the old lady. Although, what reason would Izuku want for having to beat the hero? It almost seems as though his anger is grudge-driven. Once again, Izuku got up from being knocked over, pushing Katsuki out of the way. "For the last time, stop charging recklessly into the freight. You're getting in my way," yelled Katsuki. "Shut it, Kashan. I'll win. I'll beat this hypocritical bastard I can't stand." Izuku responded angrily. Suddenly, memories of Izuku watching All Might on TV while holding his action figure came to his mind. The amount of joy drawn on Izuku's young face at the sight of the hero completely contrasts the Izuku he was facing currently. Suddenly, All Might came down with a guardrail, pinning down Katsuki, before turning around and punching Izuku in the stomach, sending him flying several feet away. "You stay put, young Bakugo. I'll go take care of your partner first," he said before turning towards Izuku, who was struggling to get up. As the hero made his way to the downed students, Katsuki tried to pull himself out of the guardrail, as more and more flashbacks came of him cheering for All Might to win. "All Might's just the coolest," a young Izuku said, looking at the supermarket TV broadcast. "I want to be a hero like him when I grow up." Back in the present, All Might squatted down to Izuku. He was still gasping for air. "I apologize if this ruins your view of me, young Midoriya, but for the sake of you being a better hero, this is necessary. I hope you understand me," All Might apologized. "It's true. He does, no matter what happens. Deku would never lose faith in All Might," thought Katsuki, almost free from his rail prison. "Can it, All Might? The way I view you hasn't changed a bit," Izuku grunted. "You're always a hypocritical piece of shit to me." Upon hearing this, Katsuki broke out of the guardrails, running to the two as All Might was about to finish him off. "Jerk," he cried out. nailing Izuku across the face, exploding All Might in the face in the process. A hypocritical piece of shit? The Deku I knew would never have called All Might such a thing. As All Might was dazed by Katsuki, the two fled into an alleyway. "Let go of me," Izuku yelled. "Shut up." Suddenly, Katsuki's tone changed to a much more commanding, level-headed one. Like he really was talking to someone who was his equal. A rarity for Katsuki. "I don't have any tactics for beating All Mights. I never did," Katsuki explained. "What?" "I don't have any because that's your job. You always relied on your brain over brawn, because you knew you couldn't do anything without a quirk. Your mind, as much as I hate to admit it, is your greatest weapon, even better than mine. So how about you use it like you used to?" asked Katsuki. "After all, someone who just charges headfirst into whatever problem until it works. It isn't you, is it?" Another flashback fades in. "Damn, they took apart the bridge," cried one of Katsuki's friends. "The gap isn't too big, I say we jump it." Katsuki cheered as he readied his jump. Sadly, his jump failed and he splashed into the water, wiping off the mud. He heard laughing coming from the other side. "Oh my god, Katsuki, look at you." His friends who were now on the other side laughed. "What the? How did you?" "Your friend Izuku here gave us the idea using my leaf manipulation quirk as wings to glide us across," explained the skinnier one. "What the? How did he?" "Simple, you just gotta think outside the box," answered young Izuku. The memories faded as tears leaked out of Izuku's eyes, his senses returning to him. "I'm such a fool." Meanwhile, All Might dashed across the wrecked city, trying to find the two, heading closer to the exits. As he predicted, they would be fleeing. Suddenly, Katsuki came barreling out of one of the corners of one of the heavily damaged buildings that All Might punched. As he was about to counter him, he realized both of Katsuki's gauntlets were missing. "Deku, now!" Suddenly, after Katsuki blinded All Might with an explosion, Izuku jumped out of cover, emptying the sweat reserve of one of Katsuki's gauntlets onto All Might as well as propelling him closer to the exits. Katsuki, however, was caught in the explosion and knocked out. Seeing this, Izuku dropped one of his gauntlets, making a mad dash for the exits. However, just as he was going to make it, All Might appeared once again. "It's going to take more than that to keep me down," All Might said. Izuku tried to use his other gauntlet, but All Might smashed it. "You're going to regret doing that to me." Izuku tried fighting back, but it was no use, and soon enough, the fight was no more than a one-sided beatdown. Eventually, after seeing the state he was in, All Might stopped. "You should have thought ahead before leaving your friend behind. He could have helped you by then," All Might lectured. Izuku, however, smiled back. "But I didn't leave him behind." Suddenly, All Might's eyes widened, as he took a look at the nearby roads, and only 10 meters away from the exit was Katsuki. "So he was pretending to be knocked out, huh?" All Might said, as he ran to Katsuki at top speed. "Well played, but not good enough." Suddenly, Katsuki turned to All Might, pointing at him on one of the gauntlets that Izuku dropped. Seeing this, All Might realized what that meant. So, young Midori had dropped the unused one for young Bakugo. Well played. Another giant explosion was heard, as All Might was once again sent back several meters, as Katsuki then charged to the exit seconds after Todoroki and Momo's victory had been announced. It wasn't a complete victory, but he would take it. Izuku, on the other hand, smiled in satisfaction. He looked at All Might, but felt no more rage. He had done it. He had overcome his weakness. "I did it, Sensei," Izuku uttered to himself. "I'm no longer like Shigaraki."